the story of Totto-Chan, the first grader who was expelled. But before we get to the storyline, I want to remind you guys first, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Okay, let's keep going with the story. Spoilers ahead. Stay safe and enjoy. Totto was expelled from school even though she was only in the first grade. She always caused trouble in the classroom, making it impossible for her classmates to study in peace. Her teacher constantly complained to her mother that Totto would open and close her desk hundreds of times in an hour. No other student did that. The teacher would try to tell her to stop, but as soon as her back was turned, she would start again. This time, she kept taking books in and out of her desk repeatedly until the teacher was exasperated. When she finally quieted down, a street vendor walked by, and she immediately ran to the window to say hello to them. The teacher tried to explain classroom rules, but Totto not only ignored her but even invited the street vendor to perform. It was hard for the teacher to refuse the children's request, and the whole classroom erupted, with no one paying attention to their studies. Totto was a problematic student, difficult to manage. But she wasn't deliberately disobedient. She was just too curious. She loved street performers because she always dreamed of being as talented as them. But now, she had become a bad student in the eyes of her teacher, Totto's mother. Unconditional support and love. Fortunately, Totto had a wonderful mother. When the school informed them of her expulsion, her mother didn't feel ashamed or blame her child. Instead, she calmly took Totto to look for a new school, the strange school, and the amazing principal. One day, she found a peculiar school. Its gate grew out of the ground, adorned with fresh, small leaves, looking full of life and vitality. Totto believed this school was extraordinary. The classrooms were renovated from airplanes and electric trains, their glass windows sparkling in the sunset. Totto's face flushed with excitement, eager to go inside. A 4-hour conversation with the principal before enrolling. Totto had to become a student there first. The principal was also a strange person. He could bend down and talk to children, and even offered to chat with Totto personally. He asked Totto, "What do you want to say about all those strange things?" This question thrilled Totto, as she had never met anyone who spoke like that since she was little. She wanted to say everything on her mind. She talked about how fast electric trains were and how beautiful her old school's homeroom teacher was. She said that when she greeted swallows, they responded vividly. She said she had a black dog named Locke who could shake hands, beg, and stretch comfortably. She said that when she played with scissors, the teacher would scold her, and her mother would cry. She talked nonstop for 4 full hours. The principal was even more amazing. He didn't even yawn once and responded to every single word Totto said. Totto was truly a lucky child. Never before or since had anyone listened to her with such attentiveness. The principal was also a happy adult. He gained a child's trust in just 4 hours. The principal's philosophy of education, even though Totto talked a lot, she clearly knew she had found something she wanted to explore. The principal knelt down, stroked her head, and said gently, "You are a very good child. You have so many things to learn." Education should be like this. Kneeling down to be at the child's level, respecting their natural inclinations, not looking for their flaws, but nurturing their strengths. But what strengths did Totto have? She was just a child who had been expelled from school. First day at the new school, excitement and new friendships unexpectedly. She was now enrolled in school. She was truly excited. She and Locke were ready before dawn. Her still sleepy mother prepared breakfast for her. She ate ravenously, afraid of being late for school. Just as she stepped into the new school grounds, there was a major attack on their territory. But Totto was completely unfazed. She ran up and down the school grounds excitedly. She finally entered the electric train classroom she had longed for. Even though the desks looked the same as before, she loved them immensely and happily sang a song. The electric train, which should have been still, swayed slightly with her singing, as if it were truly moving. Going to school could be such a wonderful experience. Here, she could sit wherever she wanted and choose her favorite seat and desk mate every day. Totto wanted to sit in every window seat. Unique teaching methods and self-discovery. The order of lessons was not fixed either. Different subjects were taught in the same classroom. Everyone learned from their favorite subjects. You could draw, do handicrafts, conduct physics experiments, or light an alcohol lamp. If you didn't understand something, you could go to the podium and ask the teacher. This way, the teacher could also clearly understand each child's preferences and learning methods. This was so much fun. Totto looked left and right, unable to settle down, still unable to get into a learning state. After all, she had just arrived and wasn't used to it yet. A new friend, Tammy, and a lesson in acceptance, but she found her first friend, Tammy. Tammy had polio, which made her walk strangely, with one leg and one arm not functioning normally. Later, Totto realized that there were many strange children at the school. At lunchtime, all the teachers and students moved their desks and chairs to the dining hall. There were only 50 students from 1st to 6th grade. So few. Why were there so many students? The principal's lunchtime method. Parents are always worried about children being picky eaters. The clever principal also invented this method. Foods like pork, beef, and vegetables that grow on land were called mountain taste. Fish, seaweed, and shellfish were called sea taste. Students' lunchboxes had to contain both types of food to be considered a delicious lunch. This way, children wouldn't be picky eaters and wouldn't secretly compare whose food was fancier. Before eating, they also had to sing a song. Having children sing a song was much more effective than nagging them hundreds of times. Afternoon activities and learning from nature. The school's afternoon arrangements were even more fascinating. Before they even finished their homework, the teachers took the children for a walk in the fields. They greeted the farmers and had full contact with nature. They looked carefree and at ease, but in reality, they were unconsciously learning valuable life lessons. They played hide-and-seek in the tall wheat fields and even strengthened their courage. Education through rhythm and discovering beauty. Current education focuses too much on text and language. Eyes cannot distinguish beauty, and ears cannot hear rhythm. Children have become learning machines. Principal Kobayashi specifically traveled to Europe to bring back advanced rhythmic gymnastics. He had children listen to music, spin barefoot, and use their bodies to feel the changes in rhythm. It's like everything in nature, spontaneously flowing, with rhythmic minds and bodies that are wonderful. They can hear the whispers of the earth and have endless inspiration. This day trip was truly amazing. Totto was overjoyed and looked forward to every day at school. Totto learns a lesson in responsibility, but unexpectedly, one day, the principal discovered Totto digging in the manure under the hackberry tree. In the summer, it smelled terrible. He asked her, "Won't you disturb others?" She continued to dig. This was too responsible. No one stopped Totto. She didn't even eat lunch, digging until the afternoon. It seemed she had to dig again. The principal was truly unique. He didn't stop students from digging manure. Instead, he let her continue. Later, the principal found Totto's lost wallet and didn't give up immediately. She had tried, and she had no regrets. Totto took a bath, changed her clothes, and went home clean. From then on, she never looked down again, directly preventing her wallet from falling out again. She also kept her promise, making the place she had dug spotless, even shining a little. A memorable night at school. The principal's magic didn't stop there. It was rumored that new electric trains would be coming to the school. Students eagerly discussed and guessed how the huge house without wheels would be transported into the school. Some said by tow truck, others by railway. The answers varied and were wildly imaginative. Suddenly, someone suggested, "Why don't we stay at school and see it with our own eyes?" How could teachers allow students to stay overnight at school? Unexpectedly, Principal Kobayashi readily agreed. What an unforgettable experience this would be for the children. Unfortunately, Tammy, who had polio, couldn't participate because she had to go home for rehabilitation. Perhaps even her mother didn't know how much she wanted to be a normal person. The arrival of the new electric train. A practical lesson: when the electric train arrived, the sky was still dimly lit. Totto rubbed her sleepy eyes, standing at the school gate to welcome the truck carrying the huge house from afar. It moved slowly, eventually passing through the fresh leaves and into the school grounds. During unloading, Workers used a method of rolling logs to move the heavy object. Every novel scene was deeply engraved in the students' minds. Wouldn't children love learning after having such an experience? Tolerance and respect for nature are precisely the most essential nutrients for a child's growth. The new library and Tammy's courage, but the principal didn't say what the new electric train would be used for as a classroom. This was a small secret. Tammy, who had polio, had always felt inferior. She never played on the playground and never picked out toys for herself. If she couldn't climb a tree, she wouldn't waste resources. She knew she walked slowly, so she never went for walks, always hiding in the classroom to read alone. When she finished the books in the classroom, she would bring books from home. The principal felt very sorry for her, so after the new electric train arrived, he specifically created a library for her. Now, Tammy wouldn't worry about not having books to read. But while fulfilling her need for reading, he also deliberately filled a pool with water, encouraging the children to be brave and honest with each other. We don't understand why they swam without swimsuits. It was a bit too honest. Tammy was both self-conscious and shy, unwilling to expose her arms and legs in front of everyone. She still stayed in the classroom, Totto's courage and encouraging Tammy unexpectedly. Totto appeared at this moment. She stripped off her clothes in the afternoon and then bravely pulled Tammy into the pool. Your girl. Unexpectedly, the moment she entered the water, Tammy seemed to have discovered a new continent. Her whole body felt light, not heavy like when she walked. Even the hidden inferiority in her heart was dispersed by this lightness. It seemed trying something wasn't a bad thing. Tammy tries to climb a tree. The triumph of perseverance since then, the confident Tammy was not content with that. On the first day of summer vacation, she arranged to meet Totto at school. They would climb a tree together. This was a bold idea. Tammy had polio, and half of her body couldn't move, but she was going to climb a tree. Totto was thrilled. After careful consideration, she didn't give up, but brought a ladder. She let Tammy climb with one arm and one leg that couldn't exert force, while Totto went below her and pushed her up. But it still didn't work. The ladder shook and they both fell. Despite this, Totto didn't give up. She found a combination ladder that perfectly solved the wobbling problem. The two children started working again. This time, Tammy finally reached the base. Totto happily jumped up and downed Totto's courage and perseverance when a new problem arose. Tammy couldn't reach the branch, so she couldn't climb the tree. Totto bravely climbed up to meet the elementary student. Totto didn't have much strength, but she wanted to lift another child onto the tree. Totto exerted force and thought at the same time. The clouds in the sky also helped them by shielding them from the scorching sun. However, things were not as simple as imagined. No one knew where Totto got so much strength. She actually lifted Tammy up, and Tammy stood firm without falling. This was incredible. Totto's hair was soaked with sweat. Don't be shy. Tammy also panted heavily. The two finally met on the tree. The scenery in front of Tammy was something she had never seen in her life. This is what climbing a tree was like. They both sat and watched from above, their hearts filled with an indescribable joy. This could also be considered a unique and unprecedented memory in their lives. Understanding children's differences and the principal's educational approach, Totto's mother saw her son's clothes get dirty for once, and she felt excited. She wished her son would play until his clothes were dirty every day before coming home. Besides Tammy, who had polio, Totto's class also had Takahashi, who was always small. He always walked carefully and protected his self-esteem. Unexpectedly, in class that day, the teacher teaching physics asked Takahashi if he had a tail. "Were you mocking him as a mouse?" Although it was unintentional, these words greatly hurt the children's feelings. You cannot say words that hurt children's feelings, and you cannot do things that hurt children's feelings. The principal's special sports festival, Principal Kobayashi, carefully designed a special sports festival. In this festival, the small Takahashi excelled in various events and won all the championships. His prize was also interesting, a white radish, symbolizing health, vitality, and strong life. When he took it home, his mother could also make a delicious meal with it. Principal Kobayashi was truly amazing. Whether it was polio or dwarfism, whether it was Athai, who was very picky about subjects, or Darren, the son of a poor farmer, whether it was the Korean youth who was colonized or the Japanese who escaped, everyone here could forget their physical disabilities and psychological inferiority and grow up happily and fortunately, facing criticism and war, of course. Sometimes such a peculiar school would be cruelly mocked by bad people outside. But every time, the 8th grade students would unite and bravely sing the newly composed school song in response. It looked like children arguing, but Principal Kobayashi clearly knew that these children had immense courage. He was very pleased. Sometimes, parents would also break promises to their children and make all sorts of excuses. At a temple fair, Totto's father promised his daughter that he would buy her a chick, but her father immediately became unhappy. It wasn't that he didn't want to spend the money, but the chicks sold in the market were physically weak and had very short lifespans. They couldn't live long. Children didn't understand any of that. Totto also stubbornly wanted one. Totto's chick and her sorrow Totto finally got a chick as she wished. She specifically made a chicken coop and even tied up her dog to prevent it from eating the chick. But the fate of separation was sealed from the moment they met. The chick couldn't resist the laws of nature and died. Totto was heartbroken. She cried in her mother's arms for a long time. Unexpectedly, it was Tammy who comforted her. My mom loves me, my mom loves me too. She didn't know if she was talking about the chick or herself. Heaven must be beautiful. Chicks can also become angels and fly freely. Tammy longed for this immensely. War and changing lives in September of that year, they conspired together to form the Axis powers. 4 months later, the Pearl Harbor incident also broke out. The Japanese challenged the British and Americans in the Pacific. Totto's 2 English phrases could no longer be used, for fear of being mistaken for a spy. By the 3rd grade, she had grown into an older girl. When she participated, she could push Athai out of the circle. Totto spoke arrogantly. Now, the war was getting closer to ordinary people. Japan began a wartime economy, no longer allowing lavish clothing. Even hairstyles were forbidden. Totto's father played the violin a lot. He was a little worried. Fortunately, his daughter appeared and showed the soldiers a true couple. The whole family then escaped the stage. At this point, food was also scarce. Sea taste became seaweed, and mountain taste became dried plums. Essentially, it was just plain white rice. Delicious milk candies were also unavailable. The number of men in the city was also dwindling, probably all gone to the front lines. Later, they couldn't even eat rice. Food was distributed in sequence. Totto's father also did experiments. Everyone was fighting. Who had time to listen to a symphony orchestra? When they weren't full, they mostly looked for spiritual nourishment. Tammy and Uncle Tom's Cabin. Tammy had recently been reading Uncle Tom's Cabin, which told the story of black slaves. They were so strong. No matter how much they were mistreated, they never gave in. This was truly admirable. The Japanese who oppressed us didn't have this kind of feeling after being oppressed by the Americans. This was truly ironic. It was the common people who suffered. Learning from nature in difficult times on the way home from school, it started to drizzle. The 2 children shared an umbrella and went home. In the noodle shop on the street, adults outside were slurping ramen. That wonderful sound was too much. It made Totto's stomach growl with hunger.
She also started to cry.
But she had a way. Totto sang the Frog's Legs song. In the past, every time she sang this song, she would get a big meal. But now, they weren't allowed to sing songs that made them sad. But the 2 hungry children behind her could only stand in the cold street, getting rained on. Totto's perseverance and hope. Totto finally couldn't bear it and burst into tears. Tammy didn't know how to comfort her, so she clumsily tried to pick up the umbrella. But her body couldn't bend down. Finally, she sighed and gave up. But Tammy discovered something good: the sound of water splashed by feet. If they weren't allowed to sing, what should they do? Then let's listen to the rhythm of nature together. Her strong legs splashed the water, creating sounds that reformed into the Frog's Legs song. Children who understand the rhythm of nature can always find inspiration in miraculous ways. They can perceive beauty in subtle details and create joy in difficult situations. No matter how many storms they encounter, they can continue to walk forward with hope and courage. This was the magic that Principal Kobayashi taught them. Taimi's death and the final lesson when they parted, Taimi lent her book to Totto. Although the story of the black slaves was a bit long, it was full of power and would surely help protect Totto's family. Totto also felt it was an important task. She promised to read it carefully and return the book to Taimi when school started, and one expected that this separation would be forever. When school started, the principal announced Taimi's death. He cried uncontrollably on the podium, then led the whole class to attend the farewell ceremony. The atmosphere at the ceremony was extremely solemn. Totto, who always loved to cause trouble, was quiet today. Taimi lay with her eyes closed among the flowers, silently saying goodbye to each classmate. Finally, it was Totto's turn to come to her ear with flowers. "I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll be back." After saying these words, Totto tried hard to control her emotions and left. Unexpectedly, Taimi's voice suddenly came from behind her. "Totto, how do you know? How do you know?" Hope and resilience in times of war. At this moment, Totto was completely in tears. She ran frantically out of the classroom, towards the school. The memories of her meeting and spending time with Taimi played out in her mind like a movie. The beautiful moments were clear and vivid. But the person who was once by her side was no longer there. Totto ran past the departing troops. The brainwashed people on both sides of the road were cheering. This era was truly insane. Children wore gas masks, lay with guns, fantasizing about the battlefield. Soldiers returning from the battlefield were maimed, missing limbs, or even lost their lives. Perhaps the price was not high enough, so they felt no remorse. Totto finds serenity. Totto finally reached the school. The bright spring light here was just like when she first met Taimi. Totto stumbled and fell onto the blue and white road. She cried heartbrokenly. At this moment, the principal's car rushed up. He held a book in his hand. He said, "Today, I can't let you come here." Of course, Totto had just promised Taimi that she would return the book to her when they met again. She would never forget the days when Taimi lost her freedom, Totto's father, and the sacrifice for music. Totto's father was finally assigned to a military factory. They wanted him to play military songs, and he would receive free food. This was good news, but Totto didn't understand why her father looked grim and distracted. One night, she fell asleep listening to a story about a black dragon. But her father was somewhere else, lost in thought. In Totto's heart, she finally understood that the soul would never be bought. At this moment, their family had not yet reached the point where they had to sell their souls. The Totto family's brave decision. Early the next morning, Totto was woken up by the sound of the violin. She and her mother stood on the stairs, gradually listening to the head of the family play the entire piece. In Totto's heart, it was as if she hadn't slept all night, just to dress up exquisitely for the music. It was truly worth it. "Don't say anything. I didn't expect it to be like this." Totto strongly supported this family decision. Ever since she was little, she loved listening to her father play the violin the most. Although they couldn't get food, at least now they were still young. Another year passed in a flash. The era was a torrent, and people were like small boats. Totto's new dream. Becoming a good teacher. Soon after Totto's birth, her family faced further hardship with the arrival of a younger brother. Life became increasingly difficult, and Totto grew more understanding. Principal Kobayashi specifically held a tea party at the school to share a small amount of food, as bombers had begun appearing over Tokyo. This was their last meeting. During the tea party, the children sang songs in different languages, and each spoke of their wishes. Darren thought of the original meaning of the Japanese song, while Atai worked hard towards his goal of becoming a doctor of physics. Later, everyone realized that this tea party was the school's final gift to them. And they have persisted until now. Do you have another younger brother? It seems this model will be even harder to leave. The inspiring legacy of Principal Kobayashi. Before leaving, Totto had been thinking about what she wanted to be when she grew up. She had considered being a spy, a street performer. Later, She even thought about being a ticket seller, or perhaps an ama, a female diver. But now, she had completely changed her mind. She wanted to be a teacher who always said, "You are truly a good child," and always said, "You can definitely do it." How well do I know this person that I can meet such a demand? Yes, this is the demand. Principal Kobayashi was very pleased. Even though many people died in those days, food was scarce, and people suffered in an atmosphere of terror, he firmly believed that every child who graduated from Tomogakuin would definitely grow up healthy, would never forget the joy of their childhood, and would have the ability to become a good teacher. I will give you one of the most important things. Although others might have called you a bad child, the teacher knew you had many strengths. As long as you find your own shining points and work hard, you will also reap rewards and achievements. Always maintain confidence, unwavering hope. The true story of Tomogaku in the days of daily bombings in Tokyo finally came. Tato's family was evacuated to Aomori Prefecture to seek refuge. Principal Kobayashi's paper factory was also demolished to serve as a wartime firebreak. Even Tomogakuin could not escape. The incendiary bombs dropped by the B-29s set the entire campus ablaze. Despite seeing his life's work gradually collapsing in the flames, Principal Kobayashi never gave up. He believed passionately in the children, and the fire in his heart burned even hotter than the flames engulfing the school. Tato's journey and the final inspiration at this moment, Totto was on a crowded evacuation train. The train carried countless people. The crying of her younger brother displeased the wounded soldiers. She didn't feel ashamed or blame him but hugged the child and went to the connection car. In the dark night, a strong flash of light appeared, and the scenery outside the window suddenly seemed to brighten. Totto curiously opened the night train door and was surprised to see street performers on the country road. The scene was both incredibly beautiful and incredibly unreal. Indeed, some things in childhood can be dreamed of a million times. Of course, Principal Kobayashi's affirmations were among them. The legacy of love and education, all the stories above, are true events. Nothing has been fabricated. They tell the story of a special elementary school that once existed in Tokyo before the end of World War II. The problematic student, Totto, wrote her memoirs into a book, which has been translated into 33 languages and published worldwide. It is suitable for anyone who feels their childhood was neglected. In truth, all problem students are victims of mistaken judgments. Education is not about selling water. It's about finding ways to shine a light, allowing children to live their most authentic selves, moving towards a bright future, and continuing to spread this love.